And welcome everyone to this really action-packed webinar. Overview of DocFlow for ServiceNow is going to feature our DocFlow application, which is built on top of ServiceNow. And we're going to be talking about how DocFlow can help automate standardized forms. So let's jump right into it. Before we talk about the solution, let's just spend a couple of minutes talking about the problems that are associated with automating forms. So first, if you're trying to automate forms in ServiceNow, you know this can be a really difficult process. It can be time consuming. It's very expensive to build an application that addresses a single form. And like any custom application, once you've built it, you need to maintain it, which also presents itself with a different set of issues. I've spoken with many ServiceNow customers that have very talented development teams, and they tell me that it can still take months to automate even a single form. And let's say you're doing it what I would call the old-fashioned way, where you're filling in fields of a standard PDF form and routing those forms for approvals and signatures, and you're doing it using email, right? That isn't without challenges either. It's incredibly time-consuming and very inefficient. I'll give you a quick example. One of our customers that we work with in the federal government came to us with a very manual process that involved working with a system access authorization request form. So a SAR, it's a standard government form. Everyone on the call today may be familiar with it, but the person that was assigned to oversee this task received a couple hundred of these per month and was trying to manage and track the process using email. You can imagine trying to track hundreds of these forms using email. It's very inefficient. Once you route something via email, you have no visibility into the status of the document. And I always say, wouldn't it be nice to know where the document is at every step of the process so that you basically avoid those roadblocks and you can quickly keep the process moving so that you meet all of your deadlines. And even if you're not routing a government form, email is still a very inefficient way to route documents in general, especially when those documents need approvals and signatures. There's so many downsides, right, associated with that process. Let's look at a few of them. First, there's no visibility into that process, as I previously mentioned. Cost is an issue. Digital signature software is expensive. And in order to use it, you have to leave ServiceNow and swivel chair to open a new application. Maybe that's in DocuSign or maybe in Adobe Pro. And then you have to go through and complete the process. I'll give you a quick example. I spoke with an executive at a federal agency that has a large ServiceNow footprint, but they also use SharePoint as their document management system. And what he shared was his frustration of how difficult it was to add a digital signature to a document and how time-consuming it was that he ended up resorted to having his assistant print out documents, and walk them to his desk for signatures. That's the opposite of modernization, right? The way he describes the process is probably one that everybody's familiar with. He's provided a link that takes him to a SharePoint folder. He then has to search to find the right document, make sure it's the right version, then download it to the desktop, open up his document signature software of choice. He signs it and then saves the new version back to SharePoint and, rinse and repeat. That process was taking him 15 to 20 minutes for one document. So you can imagine if he has to sign 10 documents or 15 documents, it could be a big waste of the day. So we're going to show you how to use DocFlow to address all of these problems. So would you, why would you consider forms automation, right? Well, maybe you want to replace manual processes, or you have highly customized applications that are costing you a lot of money. Those would be two great reasons. Maybe you want to provide a single pane of glass for approval so that an executive or someone that signs a lot of documents comes into one location and can see everything on their plate and very quickly move through and sign those documents without ever leaving the ServiceNow user experience. Maybe you have data that's in ServiceNow and you want to leverage that data to auto-populate these PDF forms or Word documents for that matter. And possibly you just want to leverage SharePoint from inside of ServiceNow without ever leaving that ServiceNow user experience. So, there's a myriad of things that you can do if you want to avoid downloading, signing, editing, uploading documents, that whole process that I talked about before. Forms automation is a great way to go, and certainly DocFlow. So we'll look into that. So what is DocFlow? Well, I would describe it as, something we've built on the ServiceNow platform, right? That leverages a tried and true application of ours, which is Doc Integrator. So it allows organizations to build forms such as Word documents and PDFs, and then automatically populate them with data that's stored in ServiceNow. And once that's done, you can easily route them to the right people for reviewing documents, editing, approving, and ultimately for digital signatures. It's a very dynamic process, but I think a critical thing to mention here is it's built to be used by business users so that you don't have to outsource this work to the IT department. So when you look at DocFlow, it works with a multitude of types of documents, PDFs, Word documents, even PowerPoints. Business users are the ones that are creating the routing workflows so that you make sure that people are getting the documents that need them and they're getting them in a timely manner. And then DocFlow gives you that ability to edit and sign documents and forms without ever leaving the ServiceNow user experience. And then lastly, what you're going to see today is that DocFlow provides that visibility to ensure that the proper processes were followed. Think of it more as a built-in audit trail. So we're gonna switch right over to David Sandberg, and we're gonna try to show you these things, and we'll take questions at the end of our demo. David, over to you.
All right, thank you, Brian. Before we go into the demonstration, are there specific forms, for those on the line, are there specific forms that are challenging for you, maybe giving you headaches where you have to route it to either groups or individuals? If you can, please type those into the chat. There could be a system access request, a DD2875. So if you do have those headaches, please put it in the chat. And the reason is we can have a custom demonstration for you at a later time, or maybe even put it into a future webinar. So in today's demonstration, we'll see how employees can automatically populate standard forms and route for approval and signature. Many organizations, as Brian mentioned before, have manual business processes or expensive custom-built solutions, and we can empower these customers to replace these processes. The form that we're going to talk about today is when a supervisor recommends an employee either for money or time off. So they're making a request for this individual to receive an award. There's two problems that we typically see. One, the supervisor or end user would have to manually populate the form, similarly to going to a doctor and having to retype the same information, right? And the other piece is the digital signature component. So there's a lot of signatures that are required for this form. And typically we see it being sent around, with SharePoint lists or SharePoint links for folders, sent around via email. And these disjointed systems can cause a lot of hiccups. So We're going to now begin the demonstration from the Employee Center Pro portal. We can accomplish this via any ServiceNow portal, such as the ServiceNow SP Service portal as well. Any employee, in this case the supervisor for that individual, we want to come into the system and fill out a form and get back to our day-to-day. The Employee Center Pro portal, as many of you are probably familiar, is a landing page for any type of knowledge articles or making any type of request. Being based on ServiceNow, we are highly configurable in the fact that you can have many different types of questions. So for this customer, these were just a few examples of what they had, right? Are you the nominee supervisor? They have different bands, so it might have to go through different approval processes depending on that award interval. And lastly, what form are you utilizing? So there's a few pieces to this to note. The employee, in this case, Evan, already has a user profile in ServiceNow. So this allows the supervisor to not have to manually type in all the information. It already exists, spending time and also increasing the risk for any data entry errors and having it to come back. And then the other piece is the form itself. This form will be routed to appropriate individuals or groups to sign. So once we select this submit button, we'll see how the magic behind the scenes takes this portal request and routes this form for this individual to the appropriate people or groups. So what are we looking at in front of us? This is DocFlow, and it's a single pane of glass for any of your approvers. So as an approver, whether you're a supervisor, manager, or executive, you want everything to be centralized, making your lives easier. This can be accessed a few different ways. If you are someone that lives and breathes in ServiceNow, you can always access right via the navigation pane. We saw this this particular task just come in, so let's refresh. If you are not someone that lives and breathes in ServiceNow, maybe you'll receive an email with a hyperlink prompting you into this system. What we'll talk about a little later is you don't have to repeat that process, and you can have your digital signatures for all of these forms. So on the left side, we see this is our to-do list, right? What is on our plate? And no matter what type of form it is, who it's for, when it's due, we have that easily visibility. Another piece is you see the chain of command. So where is it at the moment? Where is it going to, whether an individual or a group? So what this allows you to do is, one, the due date is sometimes a little ambiguous in emails. So this allows just that firm structure. And also you can see where the holdup is, right? Why is this not being completed? Lastly, on this section, we see the instructions. So these are highly configurable to try to make your approvers' lives easier. In the middle, what we're looking at is the viewer. So you can edit a file without having to download it. But the main reason for this is to preview to make sure we are looking at the correct document. While it looks like this lives in ServiceNow, this document actually lives in SharePoint. So we get all of the robust capabilities, content management, document management from SharePoint, but we don't have to navigate the complexity of that system. What we're going to do is pull this document down to our local desktop. Via OneDrive, we're opening this up in our Adobe application. So this is free Adobe Reader. What we're seeing is two pieces. So the first part is all the information for this individual was auto-populated into the form. And also now we can route for all of the different signatures. When talking with government agencies, a lot of them utilize PIV or CACs for digital credentialing, and we can support those use cases as needed as well. Just to reiterate the point from before, what we're looking at is the free Adobe Reader. Some organizations adopted expensive signature solutions such as DocuSign or paid Adobe Pro. So we can accomplish this with the digital signatures from the free solution. In a moment, what we're going to do is click Assignment Completed. But what is actually happening next? So David, the supervisor, just digitally signed this document. And when we click Assignment Completed, this goes to the next individual or group in that chain. But our job is not done, right? So our role is complete for that one digital signature, that one approval. On the left side, you'll see all of the other forms that we have to do. So you don't have to now comb through email. You can approach the next form and digitally sign. So like Brian was talking about before, there's a customer of ours that spends 20 minutes looking for forms. This makes that whole process significantly easier. So we just saw how in one enhanced and centralized experience, approvers can sign all standard forms without sifting through emails, right? We use the award and recognition. These are like the system access request, DD2875, so we can handle all of those forms. So in this presentation, we just saw the power of DocFlow and how it can be connected to ServiceNow and SharePoint for content management. And we saw this for one form, but it really shines when we can have the routing, approvals, and automated processes for all of your forms. With that, we can open it up for Q&A.
First question in the queue, slightly technical. Let's see. This is how do I update a form if that changes? So the question is I guess around if the form is revised or changed, how easy is that?
So it's very easy to create a new document version within ServiceNow, just a few clicks and you can add the new document. So a fairly easy process.
And is there a limit in the number of forms that DocFlow can handle?
Great question. There is not a limit, and we strongly encourage you to apply this to as many forms as possible, where we see a lot of customers have very complex solutions for one form. We can always replace that, but it really shines when we support more than that one standardized form. So there is no limit.
And then how many users does this support?
It's all user-based, so licensing-wise, so you can really, it's built to support an enterprise, and that could be tens of thousands of users.
For those of you who have joined us this afternoon, thank you. That concludes today's event. Again, if you would like to reach out to us, the easiest way to do so is via email, marketing@dtechapps.com.